Giving all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the Akyam out there doing the work of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, in truth, faith, and in sincerity. This is Brother Taza Pai here with the latest news on the situation that's happening over in Sri Lanka. All right. And I have a video here that I want to play, a short clip. And I'm going to play it in its entirety. It's 5 minutes and 2 seconds long. But I'm going to play it, and then we're going to hit the scriptures, all right? Because what's going on in Sri Lanka and other parts of the world all was prophesied right in the Bible, the same book that a lot of people around the world, they're either dismissing or misunderstanding it, or just don't even have the understanding of prophecy at all. But this is why the prophets are set up to point these things out, man. And this is coming to a neighborhood near you, mind you. Okay, so, this is something that you should be paying close attention to. But anyway, this is from CBS News, and it's titled Sri Lanka's acting president declares state of emergency following mass protests. Right, he's fleeing for his life. That was prophesied. Well, he declared a state of emergency from Maldives because he had to hightail it up out of Sri Lanka because they would have killed him. His own people would have killed him. And, again, this was prophesied. So without any further ado, we're going to play the clip and get into these scriptures.
Acting president of Sri Lanka has declared a nationwide state of emergency.
That's right. This comes after massive protests escalated in the nation following the president's decision to flee the country. Demonstrators stormed the office of the prime minister today after he was appointed acting president. The current president reportedly planned to resign today, but instead flew to the Maldives. Protesters have demanded both leaders step down. They blame the top government officials for the collapse of Sri Lanka's economy.
Joining us now is Neha Masih. She is an India correspondent for The Washington Post. Neha, thanks very much for being with us. So we have been covering this story and hearing about the dire conditions. You're there in Sri Lanka. What are you witnessing?
Well, today was a dramatic day of various developments. First, the president fleeing on the day he was supposed to resign, and then, of course, the dramatic takeover of yet another public office. So at this point right now, the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister's residence, the President's office, and the President's residence are all occupied by protesters. And this evening, right now, in fact, as we speak, we're hearing of fresh clashes near the country's parliament. So for now, the focus has been on the violence that's erupting as a tense standoff takes place between the forces as well as the people who are coming out to, once again to demand the resignation of the top leaders, which they had promised. And until there is some sort of calm on the streets, no work can happen until then.
And so for those who are just getting caught up on what's going on in Sri Lanka, can you explain how the country got to this chaotic point?
Right. So right now what we're seeing is political chaos and turmoil, but the roots of it are in the economic crisis that this country is facing. It's the worst economic crisis in decades for a country that was doing relatively well. So first it was the coronavirus pandemic that shuttered the economy, which really hit its tourism sector, which is a major sector, which is a mainstay of the country's economy. Then, of course, with the disastrous policies which were implemented by President Rajapaksa's government, included heavy tax cuts, as well as an overnight ban on chemical fertilizers to promote organic farming. This meant that agricultural production in several areas came to a complete halt. And then, of course, the global markets that have been roiled because of the Russian invasion, spiking food and fuel prices have led to shortages, so much so that the queues for at fuel stations is miles long, then people can take up to 3 days to get ahead of the queue, and even then may not find it. Food inflation has soared to 80%, and people have lost jobs. So it's quite a catastrophic situation for the ordinary citizens right now.
Well, Neha, the parliament speaker says the president still intends to resign. So why has he fled the country instead?
So behind his decision to leave is obviously the public anger that you see. The fact that the protesters have now occupied all of these important public offices despite security presence indicates that he would not have been safe. And that was his calculation, that he wanted to make sure that he was out of the country when he resigned so that there was no public outpouring of anger. The public still wants him to be tried for, what they say are corrupt practices that led to this situation. So we still have a couple of hours to go, and we're still waiting to see if he will resign. But the chaos on the streets has just added to political paralysis right now.
And Neha, the acting president is saying that he will only leave his post once a new government is in place. But with all the chaos you just described, how can that happen? And once he is in that post, do you think he'll be able to restore order?
That's a very difficult question to answer at this point, given how soon things are developing. According to the country's constitution, if a president resigns, the prime minister automatically becomes the president. And given the complete leadership vacuum right now, it's unclear who will take over and in what form. There is no consensus in the opposition as well. But the first step is to have some kind of political leadership gain trust of the public before something else can happen.
Yes, all right. Well, Neha Masih, thank you so much.
Okay, so as you can see, there's a real mess going on over in Sri Lanka, and it's only spreading. This is spreading, as you heard us say. Now, this is from CBS News, and it's on YouTube, but I can't repeat some of the things that she said. I will get a strike, and possibly I'm already, in the doghouse. So one more strike may get my whole page canceled. But she mentioned the CV-19 as being when the lady, the reporter, asked her what was the cause. She said CV-19, inflation. She mentioned inflation. She talked about, just different policies put in place that crippled the economy. And part of it is corruption. This corruption has spread worldwide. All right. And we're going to get into this. But we're going to kick this off out of the book of 2nd Ezra, of course, the 15th chapter. And what we're going to do, we're going to start at the 14th verse. Okay. So, all right, here we go. As you can see, I have 2nd Ezra here pulled up, chapter 15 in the King James Version, verse 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein." And woe meaning death and destruction. You understand? Ruin is coming to this place, man. A great, heavy destruction is set for the world. So this is why, and this was Ezra prophesying this way back in his days, something like 2,500 years ago. This was prophesied, okay? "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." And that's going into the ultimate woe, the third woe, meaning Third World War. That's coming. Where you're going to have nations and kingdoms stand up to fight against one another in the final throwdown. That battle royale, the Royal Rumble. This is the stage is being set for that. That's the Most High have his angels, his servants, the angels, going throughout the earth, stirring up these nations for that third woe. It's going down. All right. It is absolutely 100% going down. All right. Verse 16 says, "For there shall be sedition among men." So this is what you're seeing in Sri Lanka. Yeah, like I said, other parts around the world. People may forget because it ain't in the news, but Venezuela, I'm saying Venezuela, but Venezuela is messed up. But Argentina is a mess right now. You know, damn near all the South and Central America is in an upheaval. But then you got Greece, been going on for over a decade now. Greece been having woes. Um, who else is that? Just different parts. You know, you got the situation over with in Ukraine dealing with Russia, and it's just different, parts of the world where there's sedition among men. There's no denying these things. All right. It says, verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. All right. Russia invaded Ukraine with good reason, with good reason, but they still invaded. And you're going to see more invasions. You're going to see China invade Taiwan. All right. You're going to see Israel, aided by the U.S., invade Iran. And you might end up seeing North Korea invade South Korea. Then that's just to name a few. But as the scripture says, and invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. And that's exactly the case in Sri Lanka. They're not regarding their kings or the prince, the president and the prime minister, because under Esau, being the devil that he is, he doesn't allow kings. Now he'll allow this old decrepit, wretched bitch to sit on the throne in England and call herself a queen, falsely. But no one's allowed to be a king, unless you are some small country in Africa, But other than that, right, these major countries, most of them either have prime ministers or presidents. So in the case of Sri Lanka, the king would be the president. And the prince would be the prime minister, the second in charge. All right. So this is what you see. This is what you see again, verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So you know what that means? Protest, riots, just storming the streets, torches and pitchforks, and not giving a damn about no laws, no structure, no nothing. People, just as in Sri Lanka, people will be out for blood. All right, them Elamites over in Sri Lanka are out for blood. That's what they saying. No, we don't. They really don't want him to resign. They wanted to put him to death. Talking about they want him to come back to stand trial. No, they want to get their hands on that devil. Because in their mind they feel as if he's destroyed the country. But well, I just put it this way: when you're in them types of positions, a lot of time, the powers that be, the ruling elite, will have something on you to put you over a barrel. And that way you're going to do their bidding regardless, whether you want to or not. And then you have those that are willingly corrupt. You see? But this is what's going on around the world. Most, I can't say all, most systems of governments around the world, regardless, whether it's communist, democracy, whatever they form of government, they are enforcing, they're all corrupt. The entire world has become corrupt, and the systems that run it, they're all corrupt. All right. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, right? For roadblocks, martial law, and just flat out chaos, man. You ain't gonna want to go to some places just because it might cost you your life. All right. Here it is. There it is. It's right there, verse 18. For because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled. So there's going to be trouble in the cities. So you're not just going to be able to flow freely from city to city. All right. The cities shall be troubled. The houses shall be destroyed. And men shall be afraid. It says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. All right. So this is right. All right. So this that's what you see in Sri Lanka, that, at the root of all of that is economic woes. People not eating, people don't have money. And guess what? We're on the fast track to that. Right? You got gas that's is unaffordable. You got food, that's unaffordable. People have to, get assistance from the government just to be able to feed their family. And that ain't just our people, the Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans predominantly. This is going, for it don't too much affect these heathen nations who just come over here to get rich off of us as Hebrew Israelites, but these Edomites who was born and raised here, they're struggling. They're struggling right along with those who they thought they was better than the Hebrew Israelites. We're all in this same boat, except, the Most High coming to deliver us from this shit. Y'all gonna sink with this ship that y'all created, this ship that y'all built. Y'all sinking with this ship. The Most High is gonna throw us a life preserver. Well, he has thrown us a life preserver. And that's a lesson right there. Yahweh Shai, the life preserver on the drowning ship. So this is what we have that these other nations don't have. And they're going to fall hard. They're going to fall hard for the treatment of the Hebrew Israelites, the way that they treated us, and for the wickedness that they promoted in this earth. All right? Look at this. For because, verse 18, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled. See? And this is what they don't take into account. They're pissed off at the president. They're pissed off at the prime minister. Right now, people here in America pissed off at Joe Biden. All around the world, people are pissed off at the leaders of their countries, but not taking into account their own wickedness and their own pride. Your own pride brought you here. This is what the scripture is saying. It says the houses shall be destroyed. You're going to see that. And men shall be afraid. It says a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulations. How many movies have you seen showing you this? Going all the way back to the 70s, but I remember in the 80s, Mad Max was dealing with that. I didn't understand it back then. I just, some wild violence. As a young kid, young buck coming up, you'd be into the violence, but I didn't understand that was in the aftermath of a nuclear destruction. But except it ain't gonna go that way. A nuclear destruction is coming, but it won't be no people left. But anyway, it was dog eat dog, survival of the fittest. That's what it was. That's what's coming to America. Before its great destruction, it's going to be a lack of bread. And, if a person know that their neighbor has food or been storing food, and that neighbor don't want to share, that neighbor might lose his life behind that food. Or that he going to have to take his neighbor out. Or it might be just somebody just on a hunt. People just going to go on hunt. People going to click up. They're just going to go house to house, ravishing through people's houses. It's going to get bad. It's going to get real bad. That's Sri Lanka. That's some light shit because they're just after one or two men. But when it's really dog eat dog, that's when you see real chaos, because then, see, like they say, it's safety in numbers. But then it might not be no numbers. Well, it's going to be the numbers are going to be very few. As the scripture say, your very neighbor's the one you're going to have to watch for. That's why I said in verse 17, no, that ain't it. Verse 18, at the end of that verse, it says, and men shall be afraid. Men are going to be afraid in that day. Men are going to be very, very afraid. All right, a few more verses, man, because you heard a mention about, just 1 second. She mentioned about the causes, what brought Sri Lanka to this, what caused all of this, and she mentioned the CV-19, as I stated earlier. She mentioned inflation and just horrible policies being put in place. All right. Now this is, I want to bring this out as far as Babylon here in America, but the situation as America played a major key role in this situation, in the situations that are going on around the world. You can trace it all back to America, biblically known or prophetically known as Babylon. All right. So in Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 7, it says, Babylon had been a golden cup in the Most High's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Now what you saw was a nation pissed off, a nation mad. And you get so mad till you lose it, and then they call that going mad. He done gone mad. Somebody that lose it, you say that person done gone mad, but actual anger brought them to that state. So it's a twofold. It's a twofold right there. The nations are literally mad, angry, and then they're losing it mad. Well, this is what's happening, man. It said Babylon, America, had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. What are all the earth drunken on? The policies, which fall under the doctrines and ideologies of America, which it exports as policy. Just as all the lockdowns and stuff, who came up with that? That was the powers that be. But the thing itself came out of a Babylonian laboratory. It started in a Babylonian laboratory. All right, that's considered wine through their policies and practices. Okay, so all the earth have drunken of her wine. That's just one example. Then you got democracy, a prime minister. When in history, have India ever had a goddamn president or a prime minister? They ain't never rolled like that. That's wine. It says, the nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. Now, I have the nations drunken of her wine. I explained what the wine is and how they drunken it, but how, how did that wine get there in the first place? You know what I'm saying? And I have to bring you over to Revelation 18, all right? And verse 3, it says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The same her we was reading about in Jeremiah 51, Babylon. That mother of harlots. Well, this virgin daughter of Babylon, the mother of harlots. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornications. Check this out. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. All right. So either they do it willingly or this devil will come and force him to do it. He has ways. He has his ways, and he's very efficient. He's very good at getting people to do his bidding. But regardless, the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, Babylon. So that they'll kill you, take you out and put in a puppet leader. They call it a coup d'etat. So, you can play ball and get rich, or you could die. Or you could maybe step down, but you don't hear about leaders stepping down too much. You hear about leaders being assassinated, just as the leader over in Haiti. Oh, was that Haiti? Yeah, I believe that was Haiti. That leader in Haiti he died horribly. Didn't say Haiti or Jamaica, but I believe that was Haiti. But you brothers may be more familiar with it. It's been a minute, and that's not too fresh in my mind. But that's how Esau do you. If you don't want to drink the wine, he'll put you to death and find somebody who will. And again, that wine is his doctrines, his philosophies, his ideologies. Is in the form of his policies and practices. When we speaking politically. All right. So the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Right. They go along with the corruption to enslave and oppress their own people. And this is the wine that has the nations mad. It says, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Yes, the merchants of the earth, your Bill Gates, your Warren Buffetts, all these guys, the media mogul, forget his name, shit. But all these people that, that big time Warner, Time Warner, I forget his name, the guy who owns Time Warner, and Time Warner owns most of the publication companies and television studios and companies. But yes, all of these merchants who wax rich through the abundance of her delicacies, man. That's Babylon. All right, so that's the point right there, man. It's going down in Sri Lanka, man. It's straight chaos, and it just may stay like that until the Lord come back. Who knows? Who knows? Because we're just that close. So, right, again, this is coming to a neighborhood near you. So if you're a Hebrew Israelite and you have the ears to hear and understand this truth, you better do all that you can do to get that lifesaver, thrown to you. So to the next one, you brothers stay up. Much love. Shalom.